Commander Kate Mitchell rubbed her tired eyes as she stared at the anomalous reading on her holographic display. The Galactic Survey Station Magellan had picked up all sorts of strange signals during her 5-year tenure, but this one was different. It pulsed with an oddly familiar pattern, like an echo from humanity's own early space age. Running analysis again, she muttered, more to herself than to the station's eye. The signal's frequency matched no known modern transmission protocols. Instead, it resonated at wavelengths that hadn't been used in centuries, carrying hallmarks of the legendary Meridian Empire's quantum encryption. The Meridians, even 300 years after their disappearance, their name carried weight. They had been the galaxy's brightest civilization, masters of engineering who had built structures that still defied modern understanding. Their sudden vanishing had left a power vacuum that the younger races were still fighting to fill. Kate's fingers danced across the holographic interface, initiating a deeper scan. Computer, correlate signal pattern with historical archives. Focus on meridian distress frequencies. The match came back at 99.97%. A genuine meridian distress beacon, still broadcasting after all these years. Her comm unit chirped. Commander Mitchell. The voice belonged to Lieutenant Commander Jack Hayes, currently stationed aboard the UNRS Everest. We're picking up something unusual out here. Tell me you're seeing this too. Affirmative, Hayes. Meridian distress signal, coming from the Orion Arm's unexplored sector. Running calculations on its origin point now. She heard Hayes whistle low. Already did that. Check coordinates 227 Mark 484 Mark 993, right in the heart of the Leviathan. The Leviathan. Kate felt her throat tighten. The massive gas giant had earned its nickname, with storms that could swallow Earth whole and pressure levels that would crush most reinforced hulls like empty soda cans. If there were survivors out there. I'm forwarding the data to Search and Rescue Command, she said, her fingers already moving. Though I doubt. Too late, Hayes interrupted, a hint of pride in his voice. The Everest received automatic authorization the moment we verified the signal type. Standard protocol for any potential survivors. Doesn't matter how old the beacon is. Captain Rodriguez is already prepping the fleet. Kate leaned back in her chair, shaking her head with a mixture of admiration and disbelief. Of course they were. Earth's search and rescue fleets operated on a simple principle. Where there's a signal, there might be survivors. Time, distance, and danger were merely obstacles to be overcome. Her console lit up with new alerts. The Galactic Council's observation posts had picked up the signal too. Their response was exactly what she expected. Dismissal. The Zixeth theory, Voltons, and other advanced species had already marked it as a historical curiosity, not worth investigating. Hayes, she said, watching more alien ships mark the signal as irrelevant. You realize most of the galaxy thinks we're insane, right? The Leviathan makes Jupiter look like a kiddie pool. Good thing we're not asking for permission. She could hear him grinning. The Everest was built for this kind of mission. Hell, this is probably safer than that rescue we pulled off in Venus's lower atmosphere last year. Her screen filled with new data as the rest of Earth's rescue fleet responded. The UNRS Denali, Kilimanjaro, and McKinley, all ships engineered to survive conditions that would destroy normal vessels. Their crews were veterans of Earth's most dangerous rescue operations, people who regularly dove into hurricanes and forest fires to save lives. Incoming transmission from the Galactic Council, her computer announced. Ignore it, Kate replied, already knowing their message. A formal warning about interfering with historical sites, probably coupled with concerns about humanity's reckless behavior. She opened a direct channel to the Everest instead. Captain Rodriguez, Magellan Station confirms your rescue authorization. That signal's been broadcasting for 3 centuries. If anyone's still alive out there, then they've waited long enough. Rodriguez finished. Plot us a course through the Leviathan's outer layers. We're bringing them home. Kate watched as the rescue fleet aligned for faster-than-light jump, their engines flaring like newborn stars. The aliens could call humanity dangerous all they wanted. They didn't understand that Earth's most formidable ships had never been built for war. They were built to save lives, no matter the cost. The fleet disappeared in a flash of quantum displacement, leaving the galaxy's more sensible species to wonder, once again, why humans always rushed in where angels feared to tread. Captain Alexandra Rodriguez stood at the Everest's observation deck, watching the quantum wake fade from their faster-than-light jump. The massive gas giant loomed before them, its swirling storms painting violent masterpieces across its surface. Even from this distance, the Leviathan lived up to its name. Engineering reports all systems nominal, Chief Engineer Mike Thompson announced from his station. Everyone called him lucky, not because of good fortune, but because he'd survived situations that should have killed him dozens of times over. Hull integrity at 100%, pressure systems primed. Status on the rest of the fleet? Rodriguez asked, her eyes never leaving the approaching giant. Denali, Kilimanjaro, and McKinley are in formation. Communications Officer Lisa Martinez reported. All ships reporting ready. Though, we've got company. Rodriguez turned to see the holographic display lighting up with new contacts. The ZX-30 defense fleet had arrived, their sleek ships gleaming like polished obsidian against the stars. Almost beautiful, if you didn't know better. They're hailing us, Martins added, her fingers hovering over the comm panel. Put them through. Rodriguez straightened her uniform, more out of habit than protocol. The image of High Marshal Vextol materialized before her, his crystalline features arranged in what she recognized as their species' expression of concern. Captain Rodriguez, the alien's translator, rendered his clicks and whistles into English. The Galactic Council strongly advises against your current course of action. The environmental conditions within the gas giant exceed all safety parameters for known spacecraft. Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile. Thank you for your concern, High Marshal. However, the Everest and her sister ships were specifically designed for exactly these conditions. We've operated in similar environments before. Impossible, another ZX-30 official interrupted. Our scans indicate your vessels utilize relatively primitive materials by galactic standards. The pressure alone would. Lucky, Rodriguez called out. Give our friends a rundown of the Everest specs. Thompson grinned. Yes, Mom. UNRS Everest, modified Challenger-class rescue vessel. Hull composed of layered graphene diamond composite with pressure-adaptive metamaterials. Rated for depths of up to 500 kilometers in gas giant conditions. We tested her prototype in Jupiter's Great Red Spot. She held together just fine. The ZX-30 officials conferred among themselves, their crystalline bodies catching the light of the gas giant. Rodriguez could read their disbelief. Like most advanced species, they'd evolved past the need to explore dangerous environments personally, relying instead on drones and remote operations. Your species continues to perplex us, Vextol finally said. You possess the technology to build these remarkable vessels, yet you use them not for warfare or resource extraction, but to risk your lives for unknown beings who may not even exist. That's what we do, Rodriguez replied simply. Every person on this ship came from Earth's rescue services. Before we reached the stars, we were the ones who ran into burning buildings, dove into stormy seas, and dropped into disaster zones. Space is just a bigger ocean, with different kinds of storms. She gestured to her crew. Navigation Officer Emma Wells was already plotting their descent vectors, her hands dancing across multiple holographic displays as she calculated safe passages through the gas giant's turbulent layers. Lieutenant Ryan Cooper ran final checks on their emergency systems, his experience as a former smoke jumper evident in his methodical thoroughness. We've received additional data from Magellan Station, Martins announced. They've refined the signal's origin point. It's coming from approximately 317 kilometers below the cloud tops. The ZX-30 observers made sounds their translators couldn't process. Rodriguez understood their reaction. At that depth, the pressure would be measured in millions of atmospheres. "Very well," Vextel said after a long pause. "We will remain to observe and render assistance if possible. Though I must note, Captain, that your mission parameters qualify as what we would term a suicide directive." Rodriguez nodded to Martinez to end the transmission. "Lucky, start our descent sequence. Emma, plot us a course through those storm bands. Let's show our friends out there why humanity's rescue ships are the most dangerous vessels in the galaxy." The Everest's engines hummed to life, their deep resonance promising power in reserve. As they began their descent toward the Leviathan's uppermost clouds, Rodriguez remembered something her grandfather, a veteran rescue swimmer, used to say. "The impossible just means no one's done it yet." She intended to prove him right. The Leviathan's upper atmosphere shimmered with electromagnetic disturbances, creating an aurora that dwarfed anything seen on Earth. Through these curtains of light, the Everest and her sister ships descended, their hulls already adapting to the increasing pressure. "Zex-3 probe approaching," Martinez announced from her communication station. "They're using it to get better readings on our hull composition." Captain Rodriguez watched the alien device on her tactical display. It was beautiful work, probably worth more than her entire ship. As she observed, the probe suddenly sparked and began tumbling, caught in one of the gas giant's numerous magnetic eddies. "Ma'am," Martinez said, "the probe's sending out distress pulses. The Zex-3 are calculating its projected trajectory, but their recovery drones can't handle these conditions." Rodriguez glanced at her navigation officer. "Emma, how far off our planned descent route is that probe?" 8 kilometers lateral drift, Captain. We'd need to delay our primary mission by approximately 12 minutes to retrieve it." "Lucky. Can the hull handle a detour?" Thompson's fingers flew across his engineering console. "Yes, ma'am. Might scratch the paint a bit." Rodriguez nodded. "Take us in." Lisa, informed the Zex-3 we're retrieving their probe. The Everest banked gracefully, its metamaterial hull rippling as it adjusted to the changing pressures. Through the bridge windows, the probe's tumbling form became visible, caught in a violent electromagnetic storm that would have fried most ship systems. "Magnetic shields at maximum," Thompson reported, "ready to extend the recovery arm." The ship's external cameras showed the rescue in detail as the reinforced mechanical arm reached out, carefully matching the probe's chaotic spin before securing it. The entire operation took less than 3 minutes, standard procedure for a crew used to performing rescues in Earth's hurricane zones. "Probe secured," Thompson confirmed. "Some damage from the magnetic field, but its core systems are intact." The Zex-3 are requesting permission to dock a shuttle to retrieve their equipment, Martinez said, then paused. "They also seem confused about our actions." "Permission granted. Direct them to docking bay 3. Rodriguez straightened her uniform. "I'll meet them personally." The Zex-3 shuttle was a marvel of advanced engineering, its crystalline structure almost organic in its complexity. As it docked with the Everest, Rodriguez noted how its pilots carefully minimized their exposure to the gas giant's outer layers, even at this relatively shallow depth. High Marshal Vextel emerged with 2 other Zex-3 officials. Their crystalline bodies caught the emergency lighting in fascinating ways, creating rainbow refractions across the docking bay's walls. "Captain Rodriguez," Vextel began, his translator struggling to convey his tone. "We are grateful for the recovery of our probe. However, we must inquire, why did you risk your mission parameters to save a piece of equipment?" Rodriguez gestured for them to follow her to a nearby observation window. The Leviathan's storms raged beyond the reinforced glass, creating a dramatic backdrop for her response. "On Earth, we have a tradition called the Rescue Swimmer's Code," she explained. "It started with our ocean rescues, but it applies to all our operations now. We don't differentiate between easy saves and hard ones. If something needs saving, we save it." "But it was merely a probe," one of the other Zex-3 insisted. "Replaceable." Your delay could impact your primary mission's success probability. Maybe, Rodriguez acknowledged. But imagine how this looks from our perspective. We're about to attempt a rescue that your people consider impossible. Wouldn't you feel better knowing we'll do everything in our power to succeed, no matter the odds? The HFY's theory fell silent, their crystalline forms shifting in what Rodriguez had learned to recognize as deep thought. Through the window, the Everest's sister ships could be seen holding position, their hulls occasionally lit by massive lightning strikes that would have crippled lesser vessels. Your species, Vextel finally said, has a reputation for being dangerous. We assumed this meant you were reckless, primitive, perhaps even violent. But watching your rescue operation, perhaps we misunderstood the nature of that danger. Rodriguez smiled. The most dangerous thing in any rescue isn't the environment, Marshal. It's the determination to succeed no matter what. Now, would you like to observe how we handle impossible situations from our bridge? The invitation was unprecedented. Human rescue ships rarely allowed alien observers during active operations, but as they made their way to the bridge, Rodriguez knew it was the right call. Sometimes, the best way to bridge the gap between species was to show rather than tell. They had a miracle to perform after all. Might as well have witnesses. Pressure at 800,000 atmospheres and climbing, Thompson announced from his engineering station, his voice steady despite the numbers he was reporting. Hull compression at 30% of maximum tolerance. She's holding beautifully. The Everest's bridge hummed with tension as they descended deeper into the Leviathan. The gas giant's atmosphere had transformed from swirling clouds to an increasingly dense soup of metallic hydrogen, its pressure threatening to crush them with every meter they descended. High Marshal Vextel and his observers stood at the rear of the bridge, their crystalline forms vibrating slightly with each massive pressure wave that hit the ship. They'd fallen silent about an hour ago, when the Everest passed the depth that their most advanced probes had ever reached. Update from the Denali, Martins reported. They're maintaining position at the upper checkpoint. Kilimanjaro and McKinley are staged at intervals above us, ready to relay communications through the interference. Rodriguez nodded, her eyes fixed on the external feeds. The Everest's powerful lights pierced the metallic murk, revealing currents and eddies in the liquid metallic hydrogen that could tear a lesser ship apart. They were deep enough now that the atmosphere itself conducted electricity, creating phantom lights that danced across their view screens. Picking up something on the broad spectrum scanner, Navigation Officer Wells announced, her hands moving across multiple holographic displays. Large metallic mass, about 2 kilometers below our current position, matches the general profile of Meridian construction. Active scan, Rodriguez ordered. Lucky, give me a status check on our hull integrity. Hull compression at 40% and stable, Thompson replied, then grinned. Still got 60% to play with. Though I gotta say, this makes that rescue we did in Jupiter's Great Red Spot look like a kiddie pool. A massive pressure wave suddenly slammed into the ship, causing even the inertial dampeners to struggle. Alert indicators flashed across every console, then settled back to normal parameters. What was that? One of the HFY's theory observers asked, their translator barely masking the alarm in their voice. Just the Leviathan saying hello, Wells answered, already adjusting their descent vector. These gas giants have weather patterns that make Earth's hurricanes look like gentle breezes. That was probably the outer edge of a storm cell. Rodriguez studied the tactical display, watching the complex patterns of currents and pressure waves that Wells was navigating. Time to target. 17 minutes at current descent rate, Wells responded. Though there's a monster of a storm system forming above us, we might want to consider speeding things up. The ship groaned as another pressure wave hit them, this one stronger than the last. Thompson's hands flew across his engineering console, making minute adjustments to the hull's metamaterial composition. Hi, Marshal, Rodriguez turned to their observers. Your probes have better sensor resolution than ours. Would you be willing to share their data? Might help us plot a cleaner course through this mess. The HFY's theory seemed startled at being addressed. Our remaining probes are nearly 600 kilometers above us, Vextal replied. Surely at this depth, they can still give us a better view of the storm patterns forming up there. Wells interrupted, her focus never leaving her navigation displays. Might help us plan our exit strategy. After a moment's hesitation, Vextal made a gesture to one of his companions, who began transmitting data to Martinez's station. The new information flowed into the tactical displays, adding layers of detail to their environmental readings. That's not good, Thompson muttered, studying the enhanced sensor data. Captain, that storm system's going to cut off our exit route in about 40 minutes. Rodriguez stood from her command chair, moving to study the tactical display more closely. The Leviathan was living up to its name, trying to trap them in its depths. But she'd faced worse odds during the Indonesian mega-tsunami rescue operation back on Earth. Then we have 40 minutes to find our survivors and get out, she said simply. Emma, take us down. Lucky, give the hull everything you've got. Lisa, tell the rest of the fleet to prepare for a rapid ascent scenario. She turned to face the HFY observers, noting their rigid postures that suggested barely contained panic. You're about to see why Earth's rescue ships have such a dangerous reputation, High Marshal. We don't just survive impossible conditions, we make them bow to our will. The Everest descended deeper into the metallic hell, its hull singing under pressures that should have crushed it instantly. Above them, the storm of the century was brewing. Below, if they were lucky, waited survivors who had endured 3 centuries in this impossible environment. They had 40 minutes to accomplish the impossible. For Earth's rescue fleet, that was practically a luxury. Contact, Wells announced, her voice cutting through the low hum of the Everest's straining systems. Visual confirmation of structure dead ahead. The external feeds cleared, revealing a sight that made even the seasoned rescue crew fall silent. A massive structure hung suspended in the metallic hydrogen sea, its crystalline architecture unmistakably Meridian in design. Massive field generators studded its surface, still functioning after centuries of operation. Life support signatures detected. Chief Medical Officer James Anderson reported from his station, his eyes widening at the readings. Multiple signatures. Christ, there are thousands of them. The HFY observers moved closer to the displays, their crystalline forms reflecting the strange lights from outside. Impossible, one whispered, the translator barely catching the word. The pressure at this depth. Lucky, Rodriguez interrupted, get me a structural analysis. How are they surviving down here? Thompson's fingers danced across his console. The field generators are creating a bubble of normalized space around the station. Some kind of gravitational manipulation we've never seen before. But Captain, these power readings are critical. The whole system's about to fail. A new signal pinged across their communications array. Martinez straightened in her chair. We're being hailed. It's coming from the station. Put it through. The bridge speakers crackled with ancient code sequences before resolving into a clear voice. This is Administrative Intelligence Node 7249 of Meridian Deep Station Exodus. After 3 centuries of broadcasting, we recognize Earth search and rescue protocols. You are here to help. Rodriguez leaned forward. This is Captain Alexandra Rodriguez of the UNRS Everest. Yes, we're here to help. What's your situation? The station houses 50,000 survivors in suspended animation. When the Empire began to fall, our scientists discovered that the only safe harbor would be one that no one would believe possible. We modified ourselves, built this station, and descended into the gas giant's depths. Anderson's medical console was flooding with new data. Captain, these readings, the meridians in suspension, they've undergone extensive genetic modification. Their cellular structure has been reinforced to withstand these pressures. They're not just survivors. They're adapted to live here. A necessity, the AI confirmed. But our power systems are failing. In approximately 37 minutes, our containment fields will collapse. We need. The transmission cut off as another massive pressure wave slammed into both ships. The Everest's hull creaked ominously. Status: Rodriguez demanded. Hull compression at 65%. Thompson reported. We're still within tolerances, but these waves are getting stronger. That storm system above us is making things worse. Wells pulled up a new tactical display. Captain, even if we could evacuate everyone in time, our ships weren't designed to carry thousands of passengers. The combined life support systems of the entire fleet couldn't handle that many people. Rodriguez turned to the HFY observers. High Marshal, your ship's in orbit. They have more extensive life support capabilities than ours, correct? Vextel's crystalline form shifted. Yes, but they cannot descend to these depths. The pressure. We don't need them to. Rodriguez interrupted. If we can get the survivors up to the safe zone, could your ships handle the passenger load? The HFY conferred quickly among themselves. Yes, Vextel finally answered. But the logistics of such an evacuation in these conditions. Lucky, Rodriguez called out. What if we use the Meridian's own technology against the pressure? Those field generators they're using. Could we adapt our hull systems to create a similar effect? Thompson was already running calculations. Maybe. Their gravitational manipulation is way beyond our tech, but if we could synchronize our hull's metamaterial response to their field frequency. He looked up, grinning. It's crazy enough to work. We could create a pressure-normalized corridor, all the way up to the safety zone. A bridge through hell, Rodriguez mused. She opened a channel to the rest of the fleet. All ships, new mission parameters. We're going to create a safe passage corridor for evacuation. Denali, Kilimanjaro, McKinley, move into position at 50-kilometer intervals. We're going to need every bit of power you've got. The AI's voice returned, weaker now. Captain Rodriguez, you should know. Many believe we were foolish to continue broadcasting our signal after so many centuries of silence, but we knew that someday someone would be brave enough, or perhaps crazy enough, to attempt a rescue. Well, Rodriguez replied, watching her crew prepare for the impossible. Humanity's rescue services have been called crazy for centuries. Might as well live up to the reputation. Synchronization at 87%. Thompson called out, his hands flying across multiple engineering interfaces. The metamaterial response is holding, but these pressure waves are fighting us every step of the way. The bridge of the Everest had transformed into a command center for the most ambitious rescue operation in human history. Holographic displays showed the positions of all 4 rescue ships, now spread out in a vertical line stretching up through the metallic hydrogen sea. Each vessel acted as a relay point, their modified hull systems working in concert with the Meridian field generators to create a tunnel of survivable space. Power consumption is off the charts, Martinez reported from her station. Denali reports their reactors running at 110% capacity. McKinley and Kilimanjaro are pushing similar limits. Rodriguez studied the tactical display, watching the intricate dance of energies between their ships and the Meridian station. The corridor they were creating shimmered like a soap bubble in the metallic hell around them. Beautiful, but terrifyingly fragile. Dr. Anderson, status on the first revival group. The chief medical officer's voice came through from the station, where he was coordinating with the Meridian AI. First 100 pods are cycling now. These people have been in suspension for 3 centuries. We're taking every precaution. But Captain, their modifications are incredible. Their cellular structure literally adapts to pressure changes in real time. Lieutenant Ryan Cooper's voice cut in from his position at the station's main power core. We've got a problem. The station's field generators are degrading faster than predicted. We've got maybe 20 minutes before total failure, not 30. New contact. Wells suddenly announced. Massive pressure wave approaching from below. This one's bigger than anything we've seen yet. The tactical display shifted, showing a wall of super-compressed metallic hydrogen rising from the depths. At these pressures, it would hit with the force of a tactical nuclear weapon. Time to impact. Rodriguez demanded. 4 minutes. It'll disrupt our containment corridor if we don't strengthen the field. The HFY observers had been studying the rescue operation with increasing fascination. Now High Marshal Vextel stepped forward. Captain, our remaining probes, could their power cells be integrated into your field generation system? Thompson looked up from his calculations. The energy signature's compatible. But we'd need someone to physically install them at each relay point. The external conditions would kill anyone who tried. Rodriguez finished. She stood from her command chair, decision made. Lucky, you have the bridge. I'll make the installations myself. Captain, Vextel's translator struggled to convey his tone. The probability of survival is better than the probability of survival for 50,000 people if we do nothing. Rodriguez was already moving toward the equipment locker. Someone once told me that humanity's rescue ships are the most dangerous in the galaxy. Time to prove why. She donned a pressure suit rated for gas giant conditions, though even its advanced systems would only buy her minutes in the metallic hydrogen sea. These HFY power cells were secured in a reinforced container at her belt. Lucky, time the field modulation to give me maximum protection. Emma, plot me the fastest route between relay points. Lisa, keep the comm channel open. I want to hear everything. The airlock cycled, and Rodriguez stepped out into an environment that should have killed her instantly. The pressure suit's systems screamed warnings as she moved along the hull, magnetic boots fighting against currents that could tear her away in an instant. First power cell installed, she reported, her breath heavy in the suit's confined space. Moving to the transfer point. The corridor between ships was worse, a relatively empty space surrounded by pressures that could reduce a battleship to atoms. Rodriguez pushed through it, focusing on her training from deep-sea rescue operations. One step at a time, one breath at a time. 3 minutes to pressure wave impact, Wells reported in her ear. Second revival group is ready for transport. Denelli reports their section of the corridor is stabilizing with the new power cell. Rodriguez reached Kilimanjaro just as the pressure wave's leading edge hit them. The ship bucked like a living thing, its hull screaming even through the vacuum between them. She managed to install the second power cell despite hands that were starting to shake from fatigue and stress. 2 cells installed. Moving to final position. Her suit's integrity warnings were becoming more urgent. The materials were beginning to fail at the molecular level. Captain, Thompson's voice came through. The corridor's power draw is stabilizing. Whatever you're doing out there, it's working. But that pressure wave will hit us in about 60 seconds, Rodriguez finished, pulling herself along McKinley's hull toward the final installation point. Plenty of time. She could see the wave coming now, a wall of metallic hydrogen so compressed it shone like mercury in the ship's external lights. The final power cell clicked into place just as the wave reached them. All hands, brace for impact, Rodriguez ordered, locking her suit's magnetic systems to maximum. Let's show our Meridian friends how Earth's rescue fleet handles impossible odds. The wave hit, and the universe turned to pressure and light. The pressure wave struck with apocalyptic force. McKinley's external cameras caught the moment of impact, a wall of metallic hydrogen that made the ship's powerful lights refract into impossible patterns. Captain Rodriguez, still secured to the hull, watched through her failing suit as reality itself seemed to bend around them. Hull integrity at 89%. Thompson's voice crackled through the comm. The new power cells are holding. Captain, you need to get back inside now. Your suit can't take much more. Negative, Rodriguez responded, fighting to keep her voice steady as warning indicators flashed across her helmet display. I need to maintain the power flow manually. The automated systems can't adjust fast enough to these conditions. Inside the Everest's bridge, the HFY observers watched in stunned silence as the human captain remained exposed to conditions that their most advanced probes couldn't survive. High Marshal Vextel moved closer to Thompson's station, studying the readings. Your captain. The translator rendered his clicks, She understands that the probability of survival decreases with every moment she remains outside. She knows, Thompson replied, his hands never stopping their dance across the engineering controls. But that's what we do. We don't calculate odds. We change them. The evacuation corridor pulsed with energy as more Meridian survivors were transported upward through the chain of ships. Dr. Anderson's voice came through from the station. 2,000 evacuated so far. The revival process is working, but these pressure changes are pushing their adaptations to the limit. Another massive wave hit, larger than the first. Rodriguez's magnetic boots scraped against McKinley's hull as she fought to maintain her position at the power distribution node. Her suit's integrity was down to 30%, its outer layers literally dissolving in the metallic hydrogen sea. New problem, Wells announced from navigation. That storm system above us. It's not just one storm. The pressure waves we're generating are creating a cascade effect. We've got multiple supercell storms forming, and they're converging on our position. Martinez's hands flew across her communications panel. X-3 ships in orbit are reporting atmospheric disturbances visible from space. They've never seen anything like it. The tactical display told the story. Their rescue corridor had become a focal point for the gas giant's fury, drawing in storms that made Earth's worst hurricanes look like gentle breezes. The Leviathan was living up to its name, trying to swallow them whole. Lucky, Rodriguez called through the increasingly static-filled comm. What if we reverse the polarity on the field generators? Use the storm's own energy to power our corridor. That's insane, Thompson started, then paused, running calculations. Which means it might work. But Captain, the power surge through your position. We'll probably fry every system in my suit, Rodriguez finished. Do it anyway. We've got thousands more people to evacuate. The ZX-3 observers conferred rapidly among themselves, their crystalline forms vibrating with agitation. Captain Rodriguez, Vextal transmitted, your species' dedication to preserving life at any cost. We are beginning to understand why the galaxy considers you dangerous. Glad you're learning, Rodriguez managed through gritted teeth. Lucky, on my mark, reverse the fields. Emma, time the reversal with the next major wave. Lisa, tell the fleet to prepare for power fluctuations. This is going to get rough. The storms above them merged into a single massive system. Lightning bolts larger than cities crackled through the metallic hydrogen, creating electromagnetic pulses that made every instrument spike. The Leviathan itself seemed to be rising against them, determined to keep its ancient prisoners. Wave approaching, Wells reported. Impact in 10 seconds. Rodriguez's voice came through one last time, clear despite the static. Remember what we learned in rescue training. Sometimes the only way out is through. Reverse fields. Now. Thompson slammed the controls forward. Energy cascaded through the ship's linked systems, using the storm's own power against it. Rodriguez's suit sensors went dark as the surge hit her position, but her hands remained locked on the power node, forcing it to stay aligned. The Everest's hull groaned as reality twisted around them. Alarms blared across every station. But in the middle of it all, Martinez's voice cut through. Corridor is holding. Evacuation continuing at maximum speed. Through failing external cameras, they could see their rescue corridor shining in the chaos, a beacon of impossible human determination in the face of a gas giant's fury. The storm raged, the pressure built, but Earth's most dangerous fleet stood its ground. They had come to save lives. Not even a planet's wrath would stop them now. Final group of survivors cleared the danger zone. Martins announced, her voice hoarse after hours of coordinating the massive evacuation. X-3 medical ships report successful reception of all 48,317 evacuees. The bridge of the Everest was battle-worn, displays flickering from power surges, hull integrity warnings flashing across every station. But they'd done it. They'd accomplished what the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had deemed impossible for 3 centuries. Status on the captain, Thompson asked, his hand still dancing across engineering controls as they maintained their position in the metallic hydrogen sea. Medical team reached her 5 minutes ago, Wells reported from navigation. They found her unconscious but alive. Her suit was completely compromised, but she never let go of that power node. Dr. Anderson is treating her now. The HFY observers had remained on the bridge throughout the entire operation, their crystalline forms now showing signs of stress-related microfractures from the constant pressure waves. High Marshal Vextal stepped forward. In 9,000 years of recorded galactic history, the translator rendered his words with a tone of reverence. No species has ever attempted, let alone succeeded in, a rescue operation of this magnitude under such conditions. Thompson managed a tired grin. Guess you understand now why they call us dangerous. Yes, Vextal replied, but we were wrong about the nature of that danger. We thought it stemmed from primitive aggression or reckless disregard for safety. Now we see the truth. Humanity's greatest weapon is not its technology or its ships, but its fundamental inability to accept failure when lives are at stake. The tactical display showed the Leviathan storms finally beginning to dissipate. The massive gas giant had thrown everything it had at them, and Earth's rescue fleet had stood its ground. Not because they were the strongest or the most advanced, but because giving up had never been an option. Message from the HFY medical ships, Martins reported. The Meridian survivors. They're asking to speak with their rescuers. The main view screen activated, showing a face that hadn't been seen in the galaxy for 3 centuries. The Meridian representatives' features showed clear signs of their genetic modifications, adaptations made to survive the gas giant's incredible pressures, but their eyes held the same spark of intelligence that had once made their civilization legendary. Children of Earth, the Meridian spoke, their ancient language smoothly translated by the ship's computers. For 300 years, we waited in the depths. Countless ships detected our signal. Countless civilizations deemed our rescue impossible. But you came without hesitation. That's what we do. Rodriguez's voice came weakly through the comm as she was helped back onto the bridge, supported by medical staff. Despite her ordeal, her uniform was already back in place. Earth's rescue services don't calculate whether a rescue is possible. We just figure out how to make it happen. The Meridian's expression showed deep understanding. Our historians recorded that same spirit in our own ancestors, before technological advancement made us too cautious, too calculating. Perhaps that is why we recognize something in humanity's response to our signal, a reflection of what we once were. Captain Rodriguez, Vextal interrupted, his crystalline form shifting to produce a formal gesture of respect. The Galactic Council has reviewed the data from this operation. They have requested that Earth's rescue services share their protocols and training methods with all spacefaring civilizations. Rodriguez straightened, despite the obvious pain it caused her. We be honored, Marshal. Though I should warn you, our training methods are considered somewhat intense. As they should be, the Meridian representative replied. For you have proven that the most dangerous ships in the galaxy are not those built for war, but those built to preserve life at any cost. The external cameras showed the Leviathan one last time as the rescue fleet began their ascent to orbit. The massive gas giant had been both prison and protector to the Meridians, and now it had become the backdrop for a lesson the galaxy wouldn't soon forget. Humanity's reputation for being dangerous remained unchanged. But now the galaxy understood. What made humans truly formidable was not their capacity for destruction, but their unwavering commitment to saving lives against impossible odds. As the fleet rose through the layers of metallic hydrogen toward space, Martins picked up one last transmission, a message being broadcast by the HFY to every civilization in range. Let it be recorded that on this day, we witnessed the true meaning of an ancient human phrase. The impossible only means it hasn't been done yet.